Okay, I just. We won't get everything that we put on.
Anytime. Doing stuff. Anytime you want.
Sure, sure. Yeah, all right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll never. Or gas lines. No. I mean, I'm not that far, but it's close. I think, so when I got that house, they just put.
Brian, do you want a hard copy of each one of those?
Then I can read through them, yeah,
Okay.
if that's okay.
Yep, so we're making copies right now, and then.
Yeah, that way I can go through all the.
Okay. Yes, please, Trudy. Yes,
If someone was next to you, isn't that kind of like a little uncomfortable? I always said someone slide over someone else. Spread them out. I come from the Swedish, you got to give me my space. My space. I'm gonna sit back because I'm still coughing. Must be
Yeah. I'm all better. I just can't get rid of the cough.
Sometimes your lungs get,
It just takes forever.
well, sometimes your lungs just get inflamed.
I always do. I just don't
I
understand.
got a cough.
So my dog, my
New
new dog.
Did you get that?
And my doc said, you're never gonna stop. There's no reason you're coughing. Antibiotics.
Yeah.
And that was the trick.
That was it?
That was the trick.
Well, if this keeps on,
But I
I'm sure it's from tromping around in the marina in my bogs for weeks in the water. So, you know, I'm thinking that has a lot to do with it. If we could like get some sun and warmth for a while, it would make me feel better.
So I walk first and then I take him. So because he'll walk a bunch of steps and he stops. And he's going, look everywhere. Right. Oh my Lord. Nothing's changing from day to day, but yeah. So he's very good in the house, though. He's not like the street. And that's all.
He is so,
He's very sweet.
he's very sweet, and he's so funny looking guy.
He's very. He's very.
Try to sit outside of your purview over there, so I'm not coughing in your recording.
And one of the things like after losing that, my was already on my face now. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, well, true. But I don't think he carried away. That's just, he's not trouble like that. And she took him to work to the vet's office. So, but man, he was often. Yeah. Chases cars in the cars. I came over yesterday and I did it again today and said, knock it off, lay down.
I'm sorry.
So you guys walk by today. It is. Well,
So I'm just sitting in the back here because I saw the cough. I don't want to cough at the I'm better. I just can't get rid of the
You're great.
That's a mess. So I walked myself, then I walked. So It's really great when you have to see that all the time, you know, for something not right. Just go with it. You're on. So, yeah, I mean, it's
All the time together.
Did I have the agenda? I have it written down at my desk. And I have all the dates and the training.
People were scared of it. Well, this is the ninth day of Okay. I mean,
One of my many files on my desk.
I will be available for the chat. I don't know.
Okay, we will call the special meeting to order. It is May 20th and 7:05 p.m. Call the meeting to order. Will you join me please in the pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Here.
Lori? Here. Here. Any board member conflict of interest? Nope, okay. Again, this is a business meeting for the Board of Trustees. It is a special meeting. There are two opportunities for the public to speak. The first opportunity is on agenda items only, each person limited to 3 minutes. The second opportunity is at the end of the meeting, again, limited to 3 minutes per individual. And with that having been said, public comment on agenda items is open. Sure.
I may have missed it. I'm Patty Murdoch, and I live in phase 3. But I was looking for what is the current structure of the rates, and I looked online, but I couldn't really see it. It's probably there. I'm just not looking in the right spot. So being able to get some clarity to folks about what is the current state and how the rates are done would be helpful. Thank you. Any other public comments? No, public comment period is closed. Okay, we don't need to approve the agenda, special meeting. Oh, I'm sorry.
Add one thing. Minor one. It's just to add something small in there.
I don't, yeah,
Okay, just to make it 9C for office hours on Friday.
what's the date? You'll talk about that. Okay. All right, so, now we do need approval of meeting agenda with the change.
We'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Or, I'll split it. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Approval of, we don't have the previous minutes. Report. Report.
The invoice register shows 25 invoices or bills in the amount of $15,751.91.
We have a motion to accept the clerk's report.
Make a motion to accept the clerk's report.
We have support.
Second.
Comments, questions? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. New business. So the reason we're here today is to get a report from Andy Campbell from Benzinski and Company. He's here. Thank you for coming. As you all recall, we engaged Benzinski to help us understand our rates and come up with a new rate, given that we are rapidly growing with our collection system. So, welcome, Andy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Again, Andy Campbell, I'm the CPA and registered municipal advisor with Benzinski. Just some history. I did not work on the special assessment projects, the phase 1, phase 2. My team was at a different company until July of 24. We joined in 24 to Benzinski. We were at a competitor before. So a little bit of fresh eyes, but also we do have like the company knowledge of where everything's been through Bobby Benzinski primarily, who's still with us. So I'm going to kind of talk through a little bit of the history of the fund and then go through some of the preliminary financials. This is obviously not the final report you'll see tonight. It's just the guts, as I call it, of the analysis and really giving the township board some information about what we're seeing, and then decisions will come later on how to address this. So just kind of give you preliminary thoughts. If you have any questions or comments, please stop me at any time. For some public knowledge here and just kind of the overall. So phase 1, phase 2 are currently connected to the system. Well, phase 1's connected, phase 2 is in process of being fully connected. Those construction processes are almost done here. There is a special assessment on phase 1 and phase 2. There's bond issuances, which are paid by the special assessments. That's not going to be talked about tonight. This is going to center on the actual rate side. So the special assessment with the property owners are paying is a separate aspect of it's still part of the fees that the people that are connected to the system have to pay. But the special assessment pays the bond issues and just funds the principal and interest payments in kind. what we're going to talk about tonight is the actual user rates and funding the day-to-day operations of the system. Overall, the system is growing, as you said. We have some preliminary numbers to kind of talk through and what's going well and what needs to be addressed tonight. And I'm going to go through those page by page here and kind of give you some commentary here. So we'll start with page 1. This is going through like the 24-25 actual budget history and then your 26 budget, so 6/30/26 budget. The important number when you add all this up in terms of your budget is on the bottom right hand side. There's the test year column, which is the current normalized budget, if you will, which matches your 26 budget. This is a rate making tool to basically say if we take out anything that's one time, you add in something. If let's say you're short staffed, but next year you're going to have a new staff member. It's to make sure that we know what is your actual budget as of today to cover the operations and maintenance. Again, this does not include any of the debt that's paid by the special assessment. This is just to make sure that how much money do you need to bring in to operate and maintain the sewer system. That budget right now is $445,563. The numbers on the right hand side, those are from Mead and Hunt, which is the contract operator. They put together what is the budget looking like after phase 1 is complete this coming fiscal year, and then after phase 2 is complete in the following fiscal year. Roughly the same amounts. It's obviously going to grow a little bit as more customers come on. You're going to have more expenses come on. Theoretically, every customer should be a net positive, as long as you're not incurring costs to get them on the system, which is why you have a special assessment in place to pay for that. But theoretically, the rate should cover the cost of every customer plus a little bit for the other fixed costs of the system. So the direct costs of a customer are built in to the rate, the indirect costs, the administering of the system, Mead and Hunt's, everything that's built into actually maintaining and operating the system is also built into your current rate. Mead and Hunt is saying that the phase 2 budget, so a couple of years from now, will be $473,000 and change. So we're currently at $445,000. It's going to go up to $473 in terms of where they're estimating the operations and maintenance of the sewer fund to go forward. Page 2. This is also from Mead and Hunt, and just what is the expectation for capital? Obviously, extremely new system, still very much in its infancy. Mead and Hunt is saying that on average, you can kind of say it's about $40,000 a year on average. There's certain things that you do need to do every year just to make sure the system's running properly. Just cleaning out specific assets to make sure they're not blocked, make sure that they're running properly. Grinder pump and injector pump replacements and maintenance, those are just common pump items that don't last as long as a pipe. So just maintaining and replacing those as they come up. So about $40,000, give or take, every year is Mead and Hunt's target for capital improvements. Page 3. You can put these side by side for pages 3 and 4. There's a lot of numbers on these I'm going to go through. So there's a question from the audience I do want to kind of talk through first. And top left in yellow, all residential customers right now are charged a flat rate of $120.91 per quarter per REU. An REU is a residential equivalent unit. It's essentially saying that every resident that has one living quarter is charged $120.91. If it's a business, they're charged a multiple of that. Some businesses are metered. There's currently 5 customers that are metered on the system, which are businesses. They pay a base rate of $94.23 per quarter, and then they pay a usage rate of $2.40 per 1,000 gallons. So there's 5 customers that are metered, and that are the larger commercial customers, and then the residents, because there is no way to prove how much is being used, are all flat rate at 120.91. The township does not meter private wells, so it's just, that's the way it has to be for this is the standard practice for sewer systems. When you just have a sewer system and we don't meter private wells, we don't have meters on private assets that are owned by a private citizen. So RU factor is the way to do it when you don't have that data. You can't prove what anybody's using. So the flat rate is 120.91 per quarter. Going down the 25-26 column, it's the same on both pages 3 and 4 for the first column here. You'll see total revenues expected to be 289,453, which is in pink there. It does include a connection fee. Sure, you're gonna have to help me. One of them is McDonald's, and the other one is the laundromat. Thank you. So the 289,453 includes $48,000 connection fee. There's the other connection fee is going to be realized next year, most likely. That is helping with the revenues, but that's one-time revenue that is seen in that particular year. Outside of this is a connection fee is basically in place of the special assessment. If you're not familiar with how this works, the residents and commercial that was in phase 1, phase 2, they're specially assessed as part of the project. These customers, McDonald's and laundromat, are filling in later, so they cannot be part of the special assessment. It's already happened where they're at. So they pay a connection fee because they're not in the special assessment itself in the past. So they still have to pay their fair share, still have to pay the rate. However, they aren't in the special assessment. They just have to pay it in cash up front in order to connect to the system. But one of the more important things to kind of look through here and conceptualize is the total revenues again are 289,453 this year. Without the connection fee revenue, it's going to be approximately, like, give or take $240,000. So subtract out the one-time connection fee revenue, we have $240,000 of user rate revenue. The operating expenses are $445,000. That's why I'm here tonight. This is ultimately the issue that's come up over the past few years, is that the system is not funding itself. We have on normal revenues, 240,000, normal expenses, approximately 445. It's 200,000 or so in the hole. So we're going to talk about how this is scheduled out over the next couple of years, but that's the important thing to take note of right now in the 25-26 fiscal year in terms of the current funding. On page 3, so this is not a financially viable, this is obviously not a recommendation that we don't do this, but I wanted to kind of show you what happens, because one of the main questions we have in the working group is, okay, so right now we're not financially viable in terms of the cash flow, but does that change when phase 2 is done? That's the first question we wanted to talk through, is once the rest of the customers are on the system and once they start paying their 120.91 or whatever the rate is at that time, does that self-correct, and do we just have a short-term problem that we need to address before those customers come on? If you look at the 28-29 fiscal year, so this column, that's kind of the right of the blue numbers, that's the current scheduled time for the system to be built out in terms of phase 1 and phase 2. The blue numbers you can see going up over time. So currently we have 340 residential equivalent units, which is your non-metered customers, and not including the state park, which we'll talk about in a second here. That rises with McDonald's, the laundromat, and the rest of phase 1 and phase 2 coming on to 754 RUs. So from 340 to 754, that's a big increase in terms of the customer base. The first question in terms of the rate study was, does our problem go away when those customers come on? You can see at the very bottom, highlighted in green, the top number highlighted in green, it does not unfortunately go away. It is lessened. So the net cash flow expectation, if you did not raise rates in 28-29, is negative 100,000. So right now we're negative 200,000. It'll be negative 100,000 2 years from now, with the new customers coming on. So essentially they're going to bring in an extra $100,000, give or take, of revenue when they join the system, but it does not address the full net cash flow problem. The second number highlighted in green on the bottom there, you can see is like, once we learn that, so we know this is not just a short-term issue of we just have to wait it out and figure out something for, we do have to address the cash flow problem in some way. The next question you always go to in rate making is, how long do we have to do this? Can we lean on cash reserves? Can we take this over a number of years? You'll see that, unfortunately, action has to be taken very soon. You currently have 160,000, give or take, in unrestricted cash and investments. That money, the fund will go negative in terms of unrestricted cash and investments next year, without any action in terms of rates. So unfortunately, the fund is, we have a net cash flow negative. It's not a short-term problem that's going to fix itself. It's going to be lessened in a couple of years, but we do have to take some action to address it now. So we're going to talk about the potential for page 4. This is something that's still has a financial flaw, which we'll talk about, but a possibility to look at. What is a potential solution to address the long-term issue of cash flow is a scenario where the rate is increased $15 2 consecutive years. So again, currently $120.91 per quarter. It would go to $135.91 per quarter in this coming fiscal year, and it would go to $150.91 per quarter in 27-28 fiscal year. The important part of that is, like, if you look at that same 28-29 column, you'll see that it is now green in terms, like, the number in green is positive in terms of now with the system, the phase 1, phase 2 people on, the rate at 150.91. Plus, we'll talk about inflation here in a second. You now are turning to cash flow positive, and you have enough money to run the system. Before I go on, any questions on so far? Anything? Any comments or questions so far? Okay. So,
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
So ultimately, long-term fix is our minimum recommendation, is a $15 increase this year and a $15 increase next year. You can see that we still, even with that, the number on page 4, the number highlighted in green on the bottom there is still negative. It does not address the short-term fix that the township will have to most likely front money from the general fund or something for a short-term need. In order to, to be perfectly blunt, in order to fix the short-term problem, you'd have to basically double the rate, and then you'd be decreasing the rate in a couple of years as the customers came on. So it's really, this is hard as a financial advisor. I don't want you to do interfund loans and stuff. That's not what utilities are intended for. But ultimately, I don't think that's the best direction for the township, is to double the rate and then lower it over the next couple of years as people come on. I think that would cause a lot of confusion and a lot of worry from the sewer customers. So I think ultimately it's not the best thing, but I think it's the temporary solution that needs to be addressed, is that a rate increase has to be done, and the possibility of general fund or something helping with an intermediate, an interim loan for the next couple of years until the system is more built out and the customers get on the system. That would have to be paid back general fund cannot loan money and just have it be forgiven. It has to be paid back by the sewer fund with a market interest rate. But I think that's the solution that is feasible to get through the short-term problem and get back on a long-term solution. So from here, if that's obviously the board will not vote on this tonight, but in the future here, if that's the direction that the township board goes, the expectation would be that we would get on an inflationary rate increase track from there, which is going to be around 5%. And that increase is less than $3 a month for the typical homeowner. Just a note to say about that, I mean, inflationary increases a lot of times for newer systems especially are not like a real popular thing. However, this is essentially saying like we need to make sure there's money in the fund to operate and maintain and make sure we can do baseline pump and maintenance items that are recommended by Mead and Hunt. We don't want to be in a position where we don't raise rates at all, and then at like 2 years from now it's 150.91 and we don't raise rates, and now 5 years after that we're in a position where same thing. Like we're in the same position where we're running out of money. We don't have money to do it. Now we got to look at another rate jump. So ultimately, our recommendation is at the very minimum $15 per quarter increase, so $5 a month increase to the resident in the next 2 years, and then inflationary increases thereafter, and it will be monitored. I mean, the reality is like we'll take a look at this with the township in the next 3 or so years once the system's built out to make sure that you are now on track with the customers online, where your RU's at in terms of your revenues, and make sure that everything's now back on track. Couple other things I do want to address just to make sure we know kind of where this stands. The meter customers, they're going to see an increase as well. Just like the residential REU rate is going to go up, the base rate, the usage rate would also go up. So you'll see those numbers in yellow. Their fees, so that the commercial district is like the ones that are metered do not get nothing. They will get an increase as well that is relative to what is being proposed on the resident. So the base fee in this scenario would go up $15 as well, and the usage rate would go up $1 per 1,000 gallons to those customers. The final thing that I need to address tonight is the state park. So we've had a lot of conversations about the state park, and ultimately that it's not highlighted here, but you'll see this is the same on pages 3 and 4. There's a flat rate revenue / state park. The expectation for this year is that the state park is $33,000, and that's based on what we believe is the current way to do that the state park is being charged, which is 75 RUs times a reduced flat rate of $110.45 per quarter. From this scenario, this is just something that I wanted to kind of show you in terms of starting the conversation. And my understanding is the township board has approached the state park director. We need to come up with a solution that makes sense for both parties. Ultimately, representing the township, I want to make sure that we agree with something with the state park that doesn't financially detriment the system. So this is essentially to show you the possibilities of what would happen if you did like a scenario I've seen in a different community. So it's in here, but I'll just kind of explain what is in the numbers as a proposal here, and then we can talk about other ideas. But one thing I've seen, just based on the fact that the state park is more seasonal, is to charge the same RU rate as the resident during the seasonal part of the year where they're open, and then charge a 50% reduced rate during the non-times that they're open. In my opinion, this is just rate making, and we set rates for about 100 communities in the state of Michigan. They should still be paying a predominant portion of the rate, even when they're off season. It's the same thing as a resident. If a resident goes away for the winter, they don't get a break. So the state park, we have to make a decision as a township of like what makes sense in terms of a contract with another governmental entity, knowing that they should not pay nothing, they should pay something, like what makes sense. So this is just a scenario I've seen in another community. This shows you that if you took their rate to the same rate as the resident, you charge it 50% of the year, and you charge them 50% of that 50% of the year. So they pay $150.91 in 2 years, the same rate as the resident per RU for 6 months, and they pay $75.45 for 6 months per RU. That would give you the revenue would be pretty much the exact same. It'd be right in the 33,000 range. So that's kind of a break even, just to get the discussion going with the township board and the state park, is to say that we don't want to see a decrease in revenue from the state park. We think their rate structure and everything is fair right now. But it needs to be, I think, simpler and kind of just known in terms of the contract of this is how we charge you. It doesn't have to be addressed or do some Excel calculation that nobody understands. Like, this is how we want it to be done, and this is how much you're going to pay. And that's a possibility I've seen in terms of 6 months on, 6 months off. They pay the full rate for 6 months, they pay half rate for 6 months, and that gets you to the same relative revenues. And you can kind of take that from there. So maybe as the board, you say, I mean, it would be prudent to say no. Maybe you just say it should be the same as the resident, because again, the resident doesn't get to go, if they're leaving for the winter, they don't get 6 months on, 6 months off. They get 12 months on. So that could be the direction, and say, no, we want it to be full rate for 12 months or full rate for 9 months. And all of that, I think, is a fair way to do it. It just depends on what's agreeable between the township board and the state park. But I think from that is like the lowest I would go if I were you, is 6 months on, 6 months off, and 50% on the off, 100% on the on. And it's from that standpoint, from the state parks perspective, from the township's perspective, it's very easy to administer, because if your rate goes up, their rate goes up. There's no question about like, is it a percentage or is it different in terms of the rate? It's just if your rate goes from 120 to 135, their rate goes to 135 as well. So that's ultimately what we're kind of recommending at this point. But I'm always open to new scenarios and kind of talking through different possibilities. And that is part of our scope. If the state park wants us to look at the direction of the township board, I will say I don't communicate with the state board direct or the state park directly. This is all through the township. And if you want us to look at other scenarios that to consider for that contract, we're happy to do so. But I do think what you're charging them is more than fair, and we need to be around the same or more revenue based on where the system components are at. So.
As you probably understood from a comment that Patty made, we have also proposed phase 3 that there is a lot of interest in, and that could bring another 170 to possibly 200 REUs, depending. I have no idea the timing on that. It could be anywhere from 2 years to 5 years, is what people are telling me. How would that impact? I mean, we'll have more cost, but we'll also have more people.
So it doesn't fix the short-term problem. It doesn't fix the medium-term problem. So you still have to look at raising the rate to 150 essentially.
Okay.
Long-term, I mean, realistically, if you're a resident and like regular commercial, this can be different for industrial users, but generally speaking, if you add somebody to the system for $150 per quarter, their nominal expense value is not going to be $150 a quarter. There's going to be, maybe it's like 130 or something, but you have to leave enough room for your indirect expenses and everything else that come with operating a sewer fund. So it will be a net positive, most likely, to add a new set of like a phase 3, as long as the township is not incurring costs to get them on the system, which is not like what you did with phase 1, phase 2. You assess the project. As long as we're assessing phase 3 and just saying, here's the cost of the project, it's going to be assessed in kind. It will be a small net positive to the system. The expenses will go up. The revenues will go up, but that will help you maintain and improve the system going forward by seeing a little bit more positive revenue that you can save for future capital needs. So.
I have a question. In the past, we raised it by a certain percentage.
Mhm.
So are you, like, I would like to right away just figure out, what percent $15 is of 129 unit in that kind of, since we've done that historically, I'd like to do that. Where we got upside down with the state park is that they had a clause in theirs that said they could pay less. They paid the lesser of what we raised it for everybody in the CPI. But you're saying the CPI, eventually we'll get back to the CPI, right?
We'll get back to a flat. We always recommend flat percentages because they're known financial numbers. I'm not like, we do have clients that are on CPI index or CP, the construction one. Some clients use that one. I personally, as a financial person, I just like flat percentages because I know like this is how much the revenue is going to increase, all things being equal. I don't want to rely on an index that can be 1% one year, 8% the next year, and I'm trying to figure out if that's actually going to be realistic to Tuscarora Township. So we're recommending that eventually you'll get to 5% increases, but it's not 5%. 15 of 120 is not 5%. So the current needs are more than 5%, but the recommendation is that you're in 28-29, fiscal 2029. As long as phase 2 gets online during that time, you'll be in a position to go to that. Do you have a question? Yes.
First of all, I appreciate your grasp of the numbers, which is very impressive. But I'm looking at $15 per resident and so on. Is that putting perfume on the pig, or do we know what caused almost $500,000 deficit in the first place? Did you address that in the beginning? I just didn't.
No, I did not. So it's taken a while to get people connected, and the costs for operations are higher than what was expected. I don't remember what the initial, I should have brought that. I don't remember what the initial cost was during phase 1, what the expectation was. I don't know for operations and maintenance.
I don't remember either.
Who put those numbers together?
Whoever your engineer was. I don't, and again, I'm coming in later, so I apologize. I should know that. But
Appreciate that.
Yeah. So do you remember who your engineer was for the project?
For the entire project, it's been performance engineer.
Okay. So they would have put together an operations budget at that time because that was required to get the funding. I don't know what the number was. I can email you what that number was, but that's with Mead and Hunt. I will just say I don't necessarily believe it's Mead and Hunt that has raised all these prices. I'm just saying like that the number that was stated in terms of building in phase 1 was not enough. The budget was too low of an expectation, and it's not bringing enough money. So I think just spitballing here, one of the problems is that this is post-COVID and costs have risen a lot higher than expectations for every system in the state of Michigan. So I don't want to throw anybody under the bus without knowing more information about what happened, but that has to be part of the component, just based on the timing of when this project started to now. We went through COVID and post-COVID, where costs to operate and maintain sewer systems, water systems in the state of Michigan has drastically risen. So that's part of it, and I can get you the other information on what was the initial expectation compared to the 445,000 now. So. Mhm.
Have you done any studies in on the other northern Michigan, central Michigan areas?
Yeah, we work with, I mean, more than half of the communities in the northern peninsula, and 90% of the communities in the upper peninsula. So, do you like just normal rates? You're saying like what's an average rate? So
where do we sell? High or median or low?
you're going to be flirting with median. So, I will give you the normal qualification that I have to give in this. All systems have different expense profiles. Some have debt, some don't have debt. Some are 100 years old, some are new. Some are lagoon systems, some are step systems, some are mechanical plants, some have big users, some don't. Some are all residential, similar to what you have. All that being said, as a company, we see the typical average rate for sewer is $150 a quarter, which is where you're going to get to very quickly. There are many, there are systems that are much higher than that. There are systems that are much lower. I mean, I was at a system the other night that's charging $130 a month for just sewer. So it's not, there are a lot of different reasons why rates can be the same or different than what Tuscarora is seeing, but you're a little bit below the average right now, and you'll be right at the average we see as a company statewide with the $150 rate. So
One of the things that we spoke about, and I think we've talked about this at some of the sewer meetings, is putting infrastructure on the shelf. Right now we stand to be able to do a little bit of that with some grant monies. However, moving forward and not knowing what the future holds for the proposed phase 3, it is built into this increase of additional $15 a quarter, so we get to the 150. Do we have anything built in there to set aside to help buy infrastructure, replacement pumps? Is that all a part of, is it a percentage? Is it a flat rate? Is it just actual costs are coming in at 130 and every quarter we're able to net $20 per REU in case of pump failures?
So for the next couple of years, so that you do have a component of your required contract with USDA called RI, which is repair, replacement, improvement. That number is $28,880 per year. That is in the analysis in terms of like savings. I will say, like, starting in 28, 29, you're going to have the money to do that. So you'll have at least, we did build in approximately $40,000, a little bit more than that, because that's kind of what Mead and Hunt told us in terms of the average that I talked about on page 2. Ultimately, you can kind of think of it as like your budget's going to be around $40,000 a year. If you spend a little bit more than that, you're going to eat into your RI money. If you spend less than that, you'll save for the future. If you buy pumps or grinders or anything, that's done by a lot of communities. It's a very smart move to like buy them with today's dollars on making sure that when they fail, you have the ability to replace them soon without being at the mercy of whether or not you can go find one at that point. But that's got to be part of the $40,000 according to this analysis. So if you buy a couple pumps, that needs to be in the $40,000 budget, relatively speaking. If we do more than that for whatever reason, then you might not be able to buy pumps that year or something. But that is it. Like the $40,000 includes that with the meeting on that estimate. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? So from here, we are going to finalize our study and again, I guess I got to take that back for a second now. Once we figure out what to do with the state park contract, we will finalize everything. It is our recommendation that the rate goes to at least 135.91 as soon as possible.
Okay.
Once the state park contract in way of, we have to think of like, we have to have a contract with them of how we're gonna bill them, what the charges are, and we wanna make it very simple. We don't like, our goal is to help you figure out a contract that makes sense for the sewer system, but also make it very simple for the people that are billing the sewer system and not having to come up with complex analysis. So, once that's done, we can finalize the rate study and give you the full report, but 135.91 rate, or again, if it's the direction of the board just to get it over with and done, I'm in full support from a financial point of view. This was scheduled out in over 2 years to try to be fair to the residents that are actually paying this, because it obviously does affect budgets, and but this needs to happen relatively soon. So this is kind of what we came up with as an option. So, but once we get the state park figured out, we can finalize the report and send it over.
Okay, we'll get that scheduled. Are you available or willing to sit in on a Teams meeting with them?
Yeah, absolutely. That's part of the scope. So if you, obviously, if with my availability, I'm happy to talk through and listen to that. So.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other board questions? Do you want me to open it up to public comment?
I'm happy to answer public questions if you'd like me to. So,
okay. Vicki, did you have a question? No, we have no more. So if you have a question or anyone has a question?
Okay, well, is there any option of like having the state park pay some sort of a surcharge for their super busy? It just seems like that is a huge pressure, short-term pressure, especially in like July and August, or it would be, I would think, on the system. So is that ever done? Is that an option, or is that not done?
That's what major usage should have addressed. Well, yeah, should being the operative word there.
Well, I guess, why has it not been used?
It has off and on. There was some confusion in the past from the notes that I was able to find, where the increase was not in accordance with CPIU. The contract reads it as either the township's actual increase or CPIU, whichever is less. And in a few of the years, it was missed, and it was not billed out at either rate. And then the following year, it was doubled. And then there was a meter, and it was metered. So there was a lot of confusion on the billing side and on the state park side.
A lot of changes of individuals doing that work. So there was that's a relatively simple thing to plug into equation.
Well, again, you're asking me to answer questions from someone else's notes from 3 years ago.
Going forward, because she's addressing going forward.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In the original contract, it said the state park shall be metered, which.
And it is metered, yes.
Right.
It is.
While and not hooked up.
Right.
You should be able to know monthly what they're putting into the system.
I agree.
And to plug that into an equation is not an exotic, difficult thing to do. So if you make up an equation for the state park to pay going forward, it should be based almost on usage completely. Now, whether or not, it's an additional the 75-hour use plus whatever. But the goal here is for people to pay for what they use.
Exactly.
And large customers should not be getting a break.
Well, and again, trying to find the data, the meter reads, we're finding a few months worth, not 12 months worth. So, again, I can't answer the whys, why we're only finding a few months,
So
why.
Going forward, start now.
I don't disagree with you, but again, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Do you have the stats on the VA fund? They're metered.
I'll defer to Lori. She does the meter reads.
Well, I didn't prepare an extensive report on meter reads
I'm
tonight.
asking,
Just are they?
Are they?
You know, is this being
how
done?
are you billing the VA fund?
The same way all meter customers are. They pay a flat rate for RU, and they pay that 2 cents.
$2.40.
Yeah, $2.40 per 1,000. I do it.
And you are getting the figure on what that thousands are.
Yeah, we have it. We have the rate that started at the beginning, each year that it's gone up. And,
Yeah, I'm not saying the rate, are you getting the readings?
oh,
Yeah.
I'm a meter reader.
Okay, so you are getting that on both, both
I
both the
can't
VA
get the
and the
meter,
state
I
park.
can't get the meter read on the state park when they're closed. Cause there's no one there to unlock it or or plow so I can get into where the meter's at.
So,
So what we have been doing, what I found is their fiscal year ends, or starts October 1st. So we go in at the end of September, read it, and then we go back in the next year at the same time, and then you have total usage. The problem is, it's hard on their budget to get billed for $1.3 million or 1.3 million gallons of water. They want it set at the per quarter. So they've been paying the same thing every quarter, even though they're open or they're not open. And they've been happy with that. So the only problem is that CPI, that we gotta get them back up to where everybody else is.
yeah, and that's kind of like, following that, you said it's gonna be a, what do you say? There's gonna be a percentage base, if they come in on, are they gonna start low? If they start low, then their percentage, they're hit the same percentage as everybody else, that will, let me see, a percentage of $100, 3% of 100 is not the same as 3% of 150. And is that going to be, or are they going to be the same percentage at the same rate? So it stays even, because if you don't, that disparity will not only exist, but grow.
My goal for the state park is that they're currently 75 RUs, which is essentially 75 homes is how the contract is built up.
75
RUs.
RUs of a total of what? I mean, because that is confusing me too. You got it, it's like you and I have talked about that. They call phase 1, phase 2, initial phase.
Yeah.
So there's three different.
Commercial.
Is the commercial phase, okay, if that's what you want to characterize, that's good. 75, there are currently 75 RUs of how many?
So there's three classes of the system. There's 340 RUs that are residential based. There's 5 metered customers, and there's 75 state park RUs. There's 3 classifications of
So
customers.
there's 415 total, is that what you're saying?
Correct, but the state park is not charged the full fee right now.
I'm just
So,
looking at what their percentage is, if you were to consider them a 75 RUs of 415,
Mhm.
there, what percentage, and what percentage are they paying of what, 443,000? They're paying 33,000, so they're paying a little less than 10%. The 75 divided by 445, or by 415, is that more than?
That's like 18%, and they're paying about 13%.
So there's a 5% disparity in their, that's kind of, you understand what I'm looking at?
Technically, yes. I don't disagree, but it's not always that simple to look at it. Like every customer should pay exactly their proportion, but because there are metered customers that come into play that are going to go up and down in usage. But yes, I don't disagree. It should be in the same realm. So
I think you would say their percentages, their peak, you build these systems not on average use to be able to handle average. You build systems to handle peak.
Mhm.
And they are increasing the peak.
mhm. From the township's point of view, you want the most stable and most revenue you can get from the state park, because that will lower the responsibilities of the other customers on the system. So that's what we're going in with. From my point of view, as being hired by the township, is to figure out a solution that is implementable based on multiple different township treasurers and everybody that's doing the billing, making sure it's known to the state park and making sure it gathers as much revenue as we feasibly can from the state park to lower the responsibilities. So whether that, I mean, I don't disagree that usage is a factor that if the RU method is better for the budget of the state park and it's better for our income as being higher amount of expected income by charging RUs and more stable by charging a flat rate, then that's what I'm going to recommend. If it's a flow based, because that's what those other 5 customers are paying, and that's the best financial picture, that's what we'll recommend. It's basic. We're trying to figure out what does the state park want, but I mean, to be perfectly honest, like, not who I work for, so I care, but I want the township to have the best deal. So we want to be fair with that, but we also want to say, like, we have to make sure that they're paying their fair share as we're doing the percentages. And if an RU method is the best thing for the township, then that's what we're going to do. If a flow meter rate, we still have to track their flow to make sure we know what's coming from the state park. But if we're better off charging an RU, we'll charge on RU, and that's what the contract will be. So
Far from being argumentative with you.
Yeah.
Amen. I mean, that's all I'm looking for, is to see that they're paying their fair share and that the rest of us aren't. I would say subsidy, yes,
Yeah.
correct.
Yep.
Now, along those lines, you have looked at phase 1 and phase 2. Have you looked at the allocation of RUs in the commercial district, which I feel was developed for 15 years now? That was a cluster. Have you looked at those or not?
the metered customers or
No.
the district itself?
The
I have-
RUs that they assign to various buildings and properties.
I have not, so
You want to address that?
So you and I kind of talked a little bit about how we set up, doing an audit of current sewer customers, set up a district. and
oh
then
yeah, you're
We
right.
can't just go, oh,
yeah.
this restaurant here and that restaurant here and that house here. So I,
They did.
well, so I said, I have talked to Doug Kuiper about it because he's here, like, he's still recovering, but I've already set up, and it has to be approved by the board. That's something I can do, but I've already set up a map on where I'd like to start doing that evaluation, having Doug go out and, or redo it, or somebody does it. I don't know how it works. I just know it needs to be
I
done.
appreciate that.
Yeah, so-
I agree that needs to be done.
Just to color in that, because thank you, I forgot that jogged my memory. So when you build out a new system, so an RU table is just an estimate of use because they're not metered. So you cannot charge anything you cannot prove. So it doesn't matter if one resident has 20 people living in it and one has 1. Unfortunately, the township, from a legal standpoint, has to charge the same exact rate because you cannot prove that one person may just run their faucet all day long. You can't prove that person is using how much usage coming from each one, and we can't meter private wells, so we have to charge the same rate. The same happens with commercial. You have what's called an RU table, and he says, like, okay, the bar is 1 RU per restroom and it's 0.1 per seat. And you tally all those up and the bar gets charged 12 RUs or whatever it is. At some point, and this is the township board's direction, is that to say, we need to make sure that what was originally set up to the system is correct, to make sure that the bar didn't add on a patio that was never put in to the calculations, for instance. So that's what we're going to do. We want to do it in a logical and legal way to say that it's not targeting any specific business. It's not targeting anybody in general. It has nothing to do with residents because as a residential home, you're one, so it's not going to be auditing your house or going into your house or anything. It's just basically saying that the ones that are charged multiple, so an RU factor, the businesses, are they being charged fairly now that the system is established? So essentially an audit of the rate to make sure that what they're currently being charged for RUs is correct. And that will be done in a logical way that is just everybody in the district in a geographical area. So
Appreciate that. I would contend with that would be a good approach.
So,
you have your hand up first. So yeah.
As I understand that when we started in the sewer system, that there was a capacity figure, special assessment district, this much capacity sewer. And that when you reached capacity, you had to start another district, or you had to add on to the existing plant and figure out how you were going to get the current district to pay for it, since they were a special assessment district to start. My question is, I think it's unfair in other systems, in this commercial district, the cost of an REU is $8,000. 10 years ago, it was $8,000.
Mm-hmm.
They were told when they went into the system, businesses, that if they bought extra REUs, they could buy them at the 8,000 figure. Now, how they continue to be able to purchase them after the fact, they have to pay upfront cash, because they can't be part of the loan, but they come in at $8,000. I'm in phase one. We've got a certain capacity that was planned out for us, and that's how our cost is determined, what it's gonna cost to build it. And my cost is $17,000. Does that mean that somebody that didn't come into the district originally, or doesn't have a cap, and that we've reached our capacity, can buy in for $17,000 cash, even though it might be 10 years later? Is that?
So, in terms of they should be more than 17, or you're saying, or just a question in general, like, should they be?
Well, the next phase,
Mhm.
because phase one and phase two are similar. The
Mhm.
next phase should be $25,000 for phase three. Then can somebody get back into my district at $17,000 because they didn't go in initially, and they were all given the chance to go in initially. The way they didn't get in is if they combined lots. It's primarily the only land that's gonna be available there, because they can't enlarge the district.
Mhm.
So that's why I'm concerned about, if I paid $17,000 up front, and somebody didn't make the decision that they were gonna pay the same $17,000, take advantage of the 40-year loan, whatever,
Mhm.
that I was paying for their opportunity to not pay now, and 10 years later say, I want to get in at the same price.
One thing that I'm not familiar with is like the phase, are the phases overlapping geographically? Or
No,
they,
they above
okay, so,
the
That's-
original phase one. There's an original phase one.
right,
And
but
then
then,
phase one and phase two.
okay,
That's the confusion.
but they're all like extending out the system geographically, they're not
Yes.
overlapping, okay.
Yeah.
And then phase three will be a new,
It'll be a new
Yeah, so
residential slash.
that's
commercial.
typical, I just want to make sure
Yeah.
before I
Yeah.
started finding out stuff, so, couple questions, or a couple things to answer there, if I might not understand everything here, but phase three will pay their costs, whatever they are. So if phase three's cost is 18,000 per RU or 25,000 or whatever, like they'll have to pay whatever it is based on their construction costs and their RUs to build out phase three. That will not be put on the backs of phase one and phase two or whatever, or rates or anything like that. It's just gonna be phase three costs divided by phase three RUs, and that's the rate, the special assessment, excuse me. In terms of adding new customers, this is the rate talk. I will say, like, we are in the process of talking about what happens in the future in terms of connection fee and new connections to the already built out phases to make sure it is fair to the existing customers. That's all I can really give you, unfortunately, tonight, is like, this is to talk about the user rate and the, like, this is a something that needs to be addressed right now. The addition of customers in phase one, phase two, phase one, A, 1B, 2, 3, all that stuff after the assessments are completed is going to come later once we have more time to analyze and make sure that those decisions are made correctly. So I can't give you more information in terms of that tonight, but the connection fee for customers that come in later that are not in the first district is being discussed and analyzed at this time.
That makes sense.
The danger that we fall into is it becomes a sewer system. And so we're talking about effluent in, effluent out. And it doesn't define whether it's in the commercial district or it's in phase one or it's in phase two. I have suspected, and no hard facts for that, that the commercial district exceeded its capacity.
Its original plan.
As phase one is coming on, they have a surge tank, and then they plan to use some of that capacity for commercial that wasn't there. And how did that happen? We had several commercial developments that came in after the commercial sewer system was built.
Mhm.
And they were assigned one, every vacant property was assigned one RU. But if you put a laundromat, and I don't know what the laundromat is gonna have in RUs, and you only had one to start with, if you charge them 3, that's taking up 2 more capacity as far as I'm concerned than what was planned for. So as we move forward, I'd like to be sure, to be fair for those of us who've been here for 10 years and those of us who are coming on, that in fact, that when that choice is made as we move forward, that the capacity is the capacity, and if you didn't want to get in 10 years ago, if you didn't get a free ride for 10 years and then all of a sudden raised my hand and said, excuse me, I want to hook up, and it's going to cost me $8,000 and I'll pay in cash.
So it sounds twofold to me. We've got a capacity issue at the plant, which let's just say it's 200,000. I'll say 200,000 gallons a day because I know that's what we processed during the flood, which was amazing, what half the plant running. But let's say that was the capacity. If we are, and we have to set aside 20% for additional flow, peak flow. I know in our contract with the park, we guarantee that we will be able to take 75 REUs of their effluent. And what I think I'm hearing from you is if we are already at 199,000, but then we have someone who wants to hook up in a new connection and they have 10, well, now we've exceeded our capacity. So to me, the question is twofold. Do we know what our plant capacity is when it is fully built out? And yes, with that surge tank, there is anticipation that may fall into use. But again, with a proposed phase 3, there's an additional plan B for that surge tank. And then the secondary question that I hear is, if there is capacity, maybe our total max capacity is 200,000, but we're only at 150. We need to keep it 20%. So we have 30,000 capacity available and somebody comes in and wants to buy 10 units. What is that rate? What is that multiplier? Yes. Is it from 12 years ago or is it at today's rate? 8,000 from 12 years ago or 17,000 at this end of the plant and then a year later 17,900 or less change? Or is it an amalgamation? Or do we have a period of time whereby the township says, well, and this is where we're leaning heavily into Benzinski, and we've just had some very peripheral conversations, but do you say for a set period of time, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, I don't know, if you didn't get in at the first day and you waited 8 years, it's still what it was on day one. If you come after that, there's a different rate, but why would it be much different in that initial honeymoon period, so to speak? So there's a lot of questions, and I think it's twofold. Your question, if I understood you correctly. Yes, ma'am.
Well, those REU figures initially, that $8,000 was figured to pay the loan.
Yes.
It's the same way with the additional. So that number was to pay the loan. I had a couple of quick questions for stuff you said.
Mhm.
You said we can't meter private wells. Are any of the commercial customers metered through the well, or are they metered through an outlet?
I'm sorry. We don't recommend metering residential wells because it's basically a private use problem in the state of Michigan when you start doing that to residential private homeowners. I believe on the commercial side we are metering the commercial well though.
I believe so. I can ask that question.
Yeah, because businesses are treated differently in state law. I will just be perfectly upfront and say there are a couple communities that I know of that do meter private wells in very specific situations, but many communities have been struck down in terms of lawsuits and metering private residential well. So the commercial ones are because businesses are treated differently in the law in terms of metering them, but
Where's the VA clinic meter located, you know, physically? Is it,
Measure what goes in or what comes out.
Measure what comes out, it doesn't matter what goes in it, measure what comes
Between the
out.
building and the sewer, rather than between the well and the building.
Exactly.
the township ordinance at one time, I don't know if I've looked at it lately, had the ability for original, district customers to change to meter.
I have to look at that myself.
Yeah.
I thought
stopped
someone
reading.
mentioned you had to pick it. You had your right, you could pick what you wanted, but then once you picked it, you picked it. I think that's what someone
Yeah.
who knows more about it had mentioned.
They didn't wanna, you to go back on, if you chose meter, you could meter, but that was a done deal.
Once you chose, you chose. Yeah.
You also said something about McDonald's being charged a connection fee instead of an RU fee.
so their RU fee is based on, the connection fee is based on the number of RUs that they have not purchased in the original phase special assessment. So they had the same situation where they have one RU in the special assessment because there was a stub there.
Right.
And then they're paying an additional, was it 5? Let's see here real quick.
I'd have to get that.
I'd have
You're
to
asking
get
some real
that.
specific questions, which I'd love to answer, but I don't have everything in front of me, so I can answer that for you.
They're paying an additional 6 RUs.
Well, I would say, Burger King, and on your chart, that's also what RU.
That has-
Say Burger King is allocated 10
It'll be
RUs
at the industrial.
for fast food business, which should be given to McDonald's through. Now they're sitting on a vacant piece of property, they had one, they should have 9 more. Currently, across the street is a vacant lot where McDonald's used to be. I think Jerry Johnson, the combination of McDonald's and the Trading Post may have had 11 there. He had a pretty good chunk. So you lost the O and M currently on that. Are you still charging them O and M?
They still pay.
Oh, that's interesting. If I were a business owner, I'd be pissed.
Well, you would call me and say,
Well, okay.
my building went
I'll
down.
give you that. But, eventually, that's not McDonald's anymore. But
Well, let's keep in mind that's Blarney Castle, and McDonald's was a leasee. And so they're, as of last year, and things can change, my conversation last summer with them was that, yes, they indeed hoped and planned to rebuild, and they would miss McDonald's, and were looking for someone to partner with, and that was the way they left it. I mean, that's a business plan for them, but their comment to me was, yes, we plan to rebuild.
So theoretically, you still have a McDonald's. It should get 10 RUs to be in line with your current chart.
I'd have to look
Also
at that
need to-
chart.
You
I don't know if
also
it's-
need to be able to charge O and M
Mhm.
based on those RUs.
Correct.
And that should be, according to your own documentation, should be a no-brainer.
Well, exactly.
So what is this connection fee?
The connection fee that I think Andy's talking to is something in the future. We refer to it as, you pay for your RUs. So to use McDonald's as an example, if they indeed get 10 or 8 times $8,000, their connection fee is $64,000.
Less vague language, so it's not so confusing.
Well,
You pay for the RUs.
Right.
but they're paying that to connect.
And it appears
So-
that you maybe have more knowledge than the average person about a sewer system. So some people want a little simpler language, and you are more sophisticated, it appears, about a sewer system, so.
As nice as that may sound, it's just not that high. If you to be considerate and you actually pay attention. And yeah, you can't leave vague scattered notes in the township hall about what you did in the past. That doesn't work.
No,
But the stuff is not rocket science.
I agree. I'm not disagreeing with you. We're trying to extrapolate from handwritten notes across the page around the corner, and I'm guessing. So we're doing the best we can with the data we have.
I appreciate that
And-
conversation. Oh, sorry.
and the conversations we're having with State Park in the past. And trying to build it from there. Yeah. And again, I wish I knew exactly how many versions of the REU chart we have found. We did find one finally with a date on it. That one I printed and have on my wall. I don't know if that's what's on the website. So there's a lot of cleanup we're encountering as well.
Yeah, Andy, is there any way, I don't know what the base was for the state park to figure out 75 REUs. I have no idea what those.
Yeah, that's a
calculations are.
percentage.
0.25 per campsite.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yeah.
0.2, is there any way in the metering to understand if that's accurate? Is that low? Is that high? Is there any way to assess and figure that out? I don't know. I'm just asking.
I mean, just theoretically, I would, in terms of like their usage,
Yeah.
you'd have to know how many sites are being used every single day. In order to make sure, like, okay, so that would be what? So 0.25 something. X times 0.25 is 75.
I wasn't thinking of every day. Like
Yeah.
the pump out. Yeah, I was thinking it's the pump. Yeah, it's the
Sorry.
overall affluence, right? So
Yes.
not by campground. I mean, we're charging
Oh,
them 75. Yeah, not by campsite. We're charging them 75 REUs. Is there any way to assess, is that accurate in terms of 75 other household REUs? Is there any way to figure that out from an average or something?
That's
there
part
to
of the
figure that out?
agreement. Like,
Yeah.
so we're gonna be making the best financial approach that we can to say, is 75 get us
The right.
the right amount of revenue?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
billing them based on usage better for the township? That's what we'll be looking at.
Yeah.
So-
And remember, we are in negotiations, so you really don't want to, throw a bunch of things out there.
No, I know. I was just wondering from the initial, in the initial.
It's not the township that's paying for it, it's the people in the districts.
That's the question, is it being subsidized, and ours are really campsites? I don't know how they threw that in there, because,
That's on the chart.
yeah, I know.
I can do a rough
I'm sure they had
calculation
to-
without
But
looking
here's
at
what
it.
I'm just
They're
saying,
paying more
as we talk about this now, campsite,
from what they're using.
somebody's in a tent, they're not using the pump out anyways, so that's not really a factor. You
Yeah.
have to get into nowadays.
Yeah.
The other thing is, people come in there and pump out who aren't camped there.
No, they're not allowed to do that now.
Not allowed.
Not allowed to do that. Only a camper can pump out their camper.
Okay.
And there are no full hookups. So it's only bathhouses that are being used. And when you come in, you can fill, and when you leave, you can pump it. I just had a customer across the woods that came in and said, years ago, we used to be able to pump out at State Park. They don't let you do that anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's probably why.
Interesting.
Trudy, I had a comment. I absolutely agree with Sally. I think what happens when phase 1 and 2 are built and operational, I think you give the rest of the residents a time period and say, okay, you have up to 2 years if you want to connect at this price. And beyond that, every year beyond, it goes up every year. That's the only way
Like
to
your
do it.
CPI goes up.
So I will say, I have to make sure, like, you're not legally allowed to do that in the state of Michigan.
You can't.
You
Well,
can't, you
but I
can't do
agree
the
with Sally.
CPI, like a consumer price
Not a
index? to
connection
raise?
fees. So there is a big difference in terms of case law against townships, against cities and villages, any governmental entity that runs sewer systems in the state of Michigan.
Interesting.
Hang on, what do I say here? So Bolt versus Lansing is a case in the 90s that was called the rain tax that was against the city of Lansing. They initiated what was essentially a stormwater fee before stormwater became a thing, and it was struck down by the court as a rain tax, and that you can't have taxes on residents without votes and all the stuff that shouldn't be happening. That was not related to Tuscarora, but the things that came down from that, the judge went further and said, this is what you have to do in terms of doing a fee instead of a tax. It has to be regulatory in nature, not revenue generating. So the township cannot take money from the sewer and just put it over into the fire department or whatever. It has to be for the sewer system. You have to make sure that you're charging everybody fairly and equitably on the same basis. There's a bunch of classes that came from Bolt versus Lansing that do apply to Tuscarora. And other case law came to play after that, where there was a bunch of rate cases about class action and the like, of saying we're going to sue whatever community on the basis of the user rate is not fair. So the 120.91. None of those cases have ever been successful, because ultimately, as long as you have an analysis, a rate study or internal analysis or something saying this is what we're doing and why, the courts have always sided in terms of the township in this case to say, as long as there's a plan and you're not sending money out of the fund, then it is viable to save money and plan for the future and such. There is a lot of case law on connection fees. So on the connection fee side, the township cannot just raise the connection fee without a calculation that's done by the book. And that means that you can't just raise the rate by 5%. The connection fee will not be raised by 5% per year. You cannot do that, because that has been struck down 1,000,000 times by the courts to say the connection fee has to be a stated calculation, it's an audit calculation that says that person is buying essentially one share of stock in the current system, the depreciated system. So if your asset value is $1 million and there's 100 customers, 100 RUs, then your connection fee is $10,000 and no more than that. It can be less. The township board can always say it's less. It's currently less than what the township board could be charging. That's the preliminary talk so far. But it can't be like we're going to go 10,000, then 10,100, because if you're not reinvesting in the system, the asset value actually goes down over time because the assets become depreciated. And if you have the same amount of customers, it's actually less and less money it would be to buy into the system. So the township will not. It's not great, because a lot of people don't. But that just to give you kind of a purview of what the township has to stay within state laws and case law on this. We can't say it was 17,000 5 years ago, so it's going to be 18,000 now, because of it's more expensive nowadays or something. It has to be based on strict audit calculations. The only thing that we are looking at that has passed muster that we've talked about, again, giving you a little bit of insight here, is that you can do sunsets, which is what we recommend, is to say you don't want to. The courts have allowed the township in this case to say it's not fair to charge 17,000 in phase one, and then 3 years later, somebody who is not in the assessment to pay the connection fee that's based on an audit calculation that's not really about phase one, and let's say it's $8,000. It's not fair that they saw through that and said, okay, well, I'm not going to pay 17,000 now. I'll just wait it out for 3 years and pay 8,000 later. The courts have said that's not. You can put a sunset to say the typical one that we recommend is 15 years, to say for the next 15 years of phase one, the connection fee stays 17,000, no more, no less. From there on out, it's the audit calculation. Same with phase two, phase three, they all would have a 15-year sunset in that geographic region to make sure that any future customers that come into that phase pay what the original customers paid, but it cannot be more than that.
There's something I remember vaguely in the paperwork, that once a certain percentage of homes connect, then is it legal that the rest of them have to connect in that district? I remember reading that legally somewhere, that once there's a certain percentage of people connected and there's only 2 or 3 left
In that phase.
that they're forced legally to connect.
So are they forced, or are they just billed an RU?
I don't
know that. That's a difference. Yeah.
I don't know. I honestly, I don't know what. Yeah, I'm not familiar, because I wasn't involved in the original project. I can look into that, but I will say that in the state of Michigan, every community has the same law. If any connection is within 200 feet of a sewer main, the township can force connection. That's the general state law, is that if the part of your house or business or something is within 200 feet of the connection point, they can force connection.
So that would solve the problem of saying, I'm not going to, or if the property is sold and automatically has to be connected or whatever. So I was just curious. I mean, I would think there's some other areas that you can look at. One of the things I was concerned with, you said early on in your presentation, that some of the commercial businesses were metered and others were not. Why why was that? We have a lot more than, how many are?
I believe that was a voluntary meter.
I think there's more than 5 commercial businesses here in the district.
5 are muted.
They were given the option to choose what they wanted to do.
Okay, well, because I mean, like a restaurant's not gonna have, it's gonna have the bathrooms, but they're also gonna have how many loads of dishes go through, I mean, how many, you know, et cetera, so that's.
Which is in the RU schedule.
So I would think that
So-
any restaurant should have a meter on.
But again, if you read the ordinance, I believe the ordinance gave them back in
Yeah.
the day.
Yeah.
And again, we're talking about things that I'm calling homework for the sewer advisory committee.
Yeah.
There's a lot to dig into.
Yeah,
There is
yeah,
a lot of research to do. Because again, when we look at that ordinance, that was created with the original commercial or original district. however you want to term it.
Right.
Yeah, at that time.
Right, with the best news at the time, right?
And now, look where we are.
We know more.
And
Yeah.
so we probably couldn't even have dreamt, that we would be here now with some of these questions.
Well, or going forward, you can simply say from any new business coming into town from the state forward has to be metered. I mean, that could be something like that. I don't know.
I think there's a lot of good information that can be gathered from this advisory committee, because you can take 5 people making 2 phone calls each and gather a lot more information than 2.
Well, the advice would have to be based on legality, what's already in precedent, there's a legal
Yeah.
precedence already.
I will-
Sometimes we'd be, pardon the expression, pissing up a rope trying to go after something.
Right.
If we
when
can't
it's- when
legally
we
do
can't
it.
win out.
Right.
I will just continue to say though, like, businesses are treated different, but I don't believe the township can enact an ordinance that says every business has to be metered if it's private property. So
So see, he's gonna be on the advisory.
we're gonna make sure it's done
Or
legally.
resource. Or
In that
resource.
case, like, you can advise them that they should be metered, but I do not believe that the case law supports forcing a business to be metered if it is a private
Yeah,
well, so.
and we're getting off in the weeds a little bit, and I apologize, but, if we had water and sewer, and I am not proposing we have water, let me make that.
It's a whole big, that's a different.
That would be different,
Yeah, because the meters would be public at that point. We would use them,
but
but-
we are only on the sewer side.
Yeah.
And I believe, and we'll probably take it home and stay up tonight reading it, the ordinance does allow for the option.
Okay.
And we did have 5 people participate.
So Amy, I get that you can't just willy-nilly set a different rate, but you couldn't, and I understand that and why, but if you set 8,000 and then you tied that to a CPI, to something that is trackable.
That's
as
what we
an
cannot
increase.
do.
You
That's-
cannot?
Can't raise it without proof. So, because again,
Wow.
if theoretically, if you do not invest in the system, the cost of the value of your assets goes down every
Yeah, I
year.
get the depreciation piece.
So, you would actually have to lower it, and
Well,
that's
you
not
have.
something.
This is, I guess, what I'm fighting with right now. You had a connection fee, and I know when they were doing the commercial one, and they could set your meetings, where they talked about that with phase 1 and phase 2. We're getting grants, which will reduce our connection fee from this to that or whatever. Well, once you build the system, that grant's done. That allowed you to go 8,000 rather than 15,000 or
Right.
whatever.
Right.
So now you come back later, the grant's been spent, and somebody else wants to connect in at the 8,000. This is
Yeah.
where, what I was interpreting when you're talking.
I
So-
agree.
And you're going, wait a minute, we got grants awarded, that grant was done. If you
Once-
wanted in
once
at the
that money's
grant
done,
rate, you should have been in at the 8. Now, does this make sense? So now what
I
you're
don't
saying
disagree
is,
with you, but you have to because if you invest in the system and you get $1 million grant and you don't pay anything, that adds $1 million of asset value that you can now raise your connection fee.
so that's how you would cover that.
Your connection fee stays stable if you debt finance the project in full. Because if you add $10 million of asset, but you debt finance $10 million, it's a net neutral, because you have to take principal on debt out of the calculation. If you add $10 million of asset value and it's all grant, your connection fee can now go up, because now you have $10 million of asset value that was not debt financed, that was not expended by cash. You can add that to your
So
connection
you
fee.
can
So
cover, because I'm going, okay,
Yeah.
you got a connection fee of $8,000 because they got a whatever amount grant that defrayed 20% of it. Okay, now you're gonna come in 10 years later after the grant's been spent. You don't have the grant defraying that. Does the township or the whatever the governing body is or operating body eat that 20%?
no, you can, in the interest of time, I just will say, like, the connection fee is going to be addressed.
You can cover your.
We're going to figure out,
It's fair.
sunset periods. We're gonna figure out is 8,000 fair, is it not? Because that is an important point when you start to become, you now, like, when you start to pass your infancy of a system, you wanna make sure that the next phase of customers is both ways, that they're not overcharged, we have a problem, and then they're not on the backs of the current customers, so. It's coming, but this is the rates, so this is part one. Yep.
Quick question. Right now, everybody's rate, whether you're commercial, residential, or state park, state park isn't paying the same as everybody else, but right now, commercial and residential are the same. Why are they not different?
So residential pays an RU factor though. And so if that's what, residents are all the 12091, they're one RU. If you're a bank, let's say it could be, not like one bathroom is one RU and it might be 0.01 per square foot. There's an RU table that delineates every single type of business possible and says that this is the multiplier of a resident. So although the rate is the same, the 12091 is the same, their multiplier is more than one. So they could, like, a bank might be 2.3. So they're going to pay 2.3 times the 12091. Should have done a much easier number. That's going to be $270 a quarter, whatever it is. Their rate itself is the same, but the multiplier is not one for a business.
So definitely the need for the sewer committee to review all the commercial properties.
That is, and yep, one of the next steps that we're doing is to make sure that every commercial customer is charged the correct multiplier.
Wow.
And with that, Andy, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, that was really
Thank
good.
you. That was really helpful. That was really helpful.
That community cleanup day and.
Oh, I'm sorry. Jonathan, do you have any information on community cleanup?
So I reached out to GFL, PAC, and Jump Services. It's a newer established trash pickup in Emmett County. I received a quote from PAC. Their closest availability was August.
Oh, my. Whoa.
GFL was supposed to get back with me. This was 2 days ago. They thought they had a June 13th available, which I think would be feasible. I tried following up with her today. Wasn't able to get in contact with her. So, and then Jump Services, like I said, they're kind of newer, established. She said they only have one truck. They would be interested. But more than likely they would have to do multiple weekends so
Yeah.
I'll reach out back to GFO tomorrow, see if they can get some dates locked in and send me a quote and be ready to go for me for June.
Yeah, or we can maybe address it at the budget meeting next week or whatever. Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks for the update. Okay, public comments on any item. Oh, one more thing. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so I just wanted to put out there for this coming weekend on Friday the 22nd. I'd like to make a motion that we close the office at noon. The boat launch and the boat beach are both closed, so nobody will be coming to get boat launch staffing. We won't be that busy. Karen said she could work 90 minutes if that's okay, so it's not, it's a holiday weekend.
So your motion is?
That we have Karen come in, open the office, work till noon, and then close.
On Friday, May 22nd.
Yeah.
Support, do we have support for that?
I support.
And questions, comments, discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Sorry about that, everyone. I'm anxious. Public comments now on anything, any topic.
I
think we're all done.
I got enough info tonight.
And board comment.
No, I just want to thank you, Andy, for coming. That was really eye-opening and definitely helped steer us in the right direction. So appreciate you.
Very good. All right, motion to adjourn, 8:35.
So good.
Thank you. Thank you for coming, everyone, and for your question. It's helpful. Andy, yeah, we'll talk.